over the span of your entire career, lifting career, what have you found to be your most productive bodybuilding routine as far as intensity of effort, volume, frequency, and then the arrangement split wise that works for your schedule, that works for your goals, etc.?
I would say training 5 to 6 days a week. You know, if there's a little more focus on reducing body fat and the, caloric deficit, then, maybe more towards 6. And when I say training 5 to 6 days a week, I'm talking about main workouts, not including additional cardio rehab,
right,
mobility or any of that stuff. So 5 to 6 main days where there's 2 primary lower body days with one more of a quad focus leg day and one more of a posterior chain focus leg day, and then taking upper body and splitting it into 3 to 4 days. And I've done it different ways with success either way, where it's like, for instance, a push-pull type upper body day and on a couple different days where one would be like shoulders and back and the other one would be like a chest and back, and then taking the smaller auxiliary stuff like biceps and triceps and scattering them in wherever they fit best, and then having the 2 lower body days along with that. And then if I split that up and go to more of like a 6-day, it usually ends up looking like taking the auxiliary stuff and matching it with the pushing and pulling, meaning like shoulders and triceps on one workout, chest and triceps would be at a lighter point in the workout. You're usually looking at like Sunday and Thursday. So like, for instance, after this, I'm going to train shoulders and triceps, and like a Thursday workout would have like chest and triceps. And then like tomorrow I would do like back with biceps and, traps. So that kind of arrangement, I've done it both ways where you're doing push-pull combinations, and then also doing it where it's like the triceps are done in conjunction with the primary movers being pushing. And then the way I like to do things is that I'll have a focal point to my workout. Like, for instance, like on Thursday, when that would be my chest focus workout, and I'm also doing tricep movements, I'm throwing in calf workouts, movements, I'm throwing in core abdominal movements, and I'll even put in things like hip thrusts. And so what that does is a couple things for me. Number one, I'm able to attain a large training volume without overtraining any particular part. So I like to train a lot. I can work out for 2 hours. Now, obviously, with the shoulder issues I have, I don't want to sit there and try to do 30 sets of chest. It's going to be detrimental. It's not going to be beneficial. But the other thing is that, like, for instance, my lower body workouts are so intense that if I try to put too much extra auxiliary stuff, like for instance, calves or hip thrusts, it starts to elongate the workout too much, and it's too much to fit into one session. So if I'm already on a Tuesday hitting squats and back extensions and some type of leg press and leg extensions and leg curls, if I want to do any of those things with quality, and then I try to start putting in calves and hip thrusts and anything else, either I'm going to be in the gym for 3 hours or longer, or some of that stuff's just not going to get worked as hard. Now, if I wait 2 days and throw hip thrusts in with my chest, tricep, core workout, and calves, I can actually hit hip thrusts really hard. I can go really heavy. It has no interference on anything else I'm doing that workout because it's completely unrelated. So I can go straight from a set of chest presses to a set of hip thrusts with basically no rest. My chest is resting, but I'm still keeping my heart rate and my tempo and my workout up, and then do a set of calves, do a set of abdominal core stuff. None of it's overlapping musculature, but I'm still doing a lot of total work. So I kind of like that approach. It has a little bit of a different feel than the traditional like kind of bro split where you're completely focusing on one area. I like to move. I could never be a power lifter because I don't like to, I always want to be doing something. I want to be moving. Like, so once I get in the gym, it's like, if I'm resting too much in between sets, I get bored, and I feel like I'm not getting a good workout. I want to feel exhausted. So I want to be able to, keep moving and doing stuff. So I like doing kind of giant sets and working in circles, sometimes of even 5 and 6 exercises at a time.
That is underrated, first of all, in terms of pairing muscle groups that are unrelated to one another. So underrated. People think that they need to have muscle groups that like actually either directly relate to one another in the same workout or are directly opposing one another, like the chest back thing, right, where you're still going to tire out your arms that are involved in back and chest when doing both. But what you just mentioned there, where you throw some legs in, where you're doing chest and triceps, was it? I think you had mentioned. And also what I was going to say was, are those sets all taken to failure?
Depends a lot on what I'm doing. So there's certain things that I may take to failure and other things that don't. So let's take, for instance, big movements. And this is something that has changed for me over the years. So I would say back 10 years years ago more, I would often like aim for an all-out set. Like let's say when I was squatting and probably, around my prime, my goal would be do a bunch of warm-ups and then put like 4 or 5 in the bar and get as many reps as I can. And when I go to do that set, I'm like, this is my set. I'm going to just destroy it. So like at one point, I remember a while back, this was like 2009 prep, and I weighed about 208 and I squatted 405 for 14 reps. And it was just an all out set. I'm like, I'm going to get as many as I can. And I used to do this stuff like that a lot. The issue is that your next set, like let's say I was going to try to do several sets with 405, the next set becomes like 8.
Right.
And then the set after that is like 5. So it's like the decline was rapid. So my approach over time that I feel like is more sustainable and actually arguably more beneficial is to have a goal of total volume. Let's say you take the same amount of weight and maybe you can get 14, 15 reps. Well, I'm going to do a perfect set of 10. Then I'm going to do another perfect set of 10. And then I'm going to, and if you look at what you're achieving over the course of that entire workout, you're actually doing more total volume because you're not destroying yourself on one set. And so I've gotten results from both. I mean, I can't say that I didn't get results from doing failure sets because I did it a lot early on in my career. But, when you start having any type of issues, I mean, first of all, if you take a set to failure, you're going to have a form breakdown, okay, at some point. You're not doing that last rep with perfect form. And what that means is that could be putting bad stress as opposed to good stress in certain areas of your body. If you're getting out of position, if you're going to failure, your form's breaking down. So I think to live another day, you're actually better off getting as many perfect reps as possible, taking the amount of rest you need, and then doing another set. And that second set's going to be more than what you would have done if you went to failure in the first. And then the third and fourth, again, if you went to failure, by that point, you're getting almost nothing in the third and fourth set. Whereas like if you are looking at the cumulative amount that you can do over a course of 5 and 6 and 7 sets, then you're doing a lot more total work and you're actually probably getting a more hypertrophic response. And so a lot of what I do, I'll do up to 8 and 10 sets on stuff. And especially if I get in a groove or something feels good, get as many perfect reps as I can, and then take the amount of rest I need until I can do another set of perfect reps.
Great points, and interesting also because you've like you said, you've tried both approaches with going all out sets, and maybe in your younger days you could withstand the stress of going all out versus now, of course, with your history, that maybe is not as appropriate anymore, and also like you said, arguably not as productive either, right?
I think that you're spot on with both. I mean, number one, when I was younger and it didn't have any type of pathology with any areas of my body where it was just kind of like I'm just going to hammer and nothing really hurts, it feels fine and it works. And now it's like if I tried to do certain things in the same way, it would feel terrible. So yeah, I wouldn't get the benefit. For instance, like I can still do heavy squats, but my difference is that I do very slow, controlled, and usually some type of pause with or without a box. I don't try to hammer like really fast reps with heavy weight on squats because it just, with certain issues, it doesn't feel as great. So there's a lot more focus on the eccentric, and it's again the focus on doing quite a bunch of sets. And usually I don't even lock into doing a number of sets. Like my rule, and this is a little weird, people are like, how many sets are you gonna do? Until I'm satisfied. I know when my last set is, because I didn't have any more to give. So let's say I'm working up and I'm like, I do a set and it feels good, add 30 more pounds, doing another set feels good, keep doing that, and I'll get to a point where like that was about as heavy as I can go, and then I might try to do one more at lighter weight. And usually whenever I get to that last set, sometimes it's at set 6, sometimes it's at set 10, I know that I didn't have any more to give. I'm like, all right, it's time to move on to the next exercise. And I think this is where a lot of people sell themselves short because they lock into, and my program says do 4 sets. Well, if on set 4 I still feel great and I'm benefiting from it and everything is like I'm in a groove, don't get off the track. Stay on there, stay in there. And if you feel like that set's beneficial, why not do more? Why change to a whole nother exercise and have to warm up again and acclimate your body to another movement? I would rather sit there and do 12 sets of something than keep switching exercises every 3 to 4 sets, because then you're almost starting over again every time you do that. And the extreme version is like, so I got a new squat bar back on the week before Christmas, and Christmas Eve I went to train legs. That's all I did. And that's unusual for me. I usually do a fair amount of exercise, but I did 21 sets of squats. And that was my thing. And they were just feeling really good. So I'm like, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do another one. I'm going to do another one until they stop feeling good, or I feel like I've gotten everything I can out of this. So
if you're taking, okay, take your all out set for a second. You're
Mhm.
staying what, maybe 4 or 5 reps shy of that on every set for the most part? Would you
Uh,
say? Or are you
I,
not even too
I,
picky
I
about
would I would say it's a lot closer. It's probably more like taking the warm-up sets out of it, probably more like 2 to 3, and sometimes coming in with one. It depends a lot on the rep range that I'm working with. As the higher
Mhm.
up I go in each set, the closer you're getting to your max. But I'm not getting to where like I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to complete this rep. So the other thing I should define, there's a difference between can I get another rep versus can I get another good rep? And that's the difference.
Mm.
So I'm pushing right to the point where I can't get another good rep. I'm sure if I wanted to, I could get another rep, but I'm not interested in hurting something. So if it's not good form, my goal is like, well, I'll work with a target number of reps on things. So like, let's say I'm doing 5s or I'm doing 6s or 10s or 12, which doesn't matter. Let's say you're doing sets of 10 and you pick a weight and you start with it and you do a set of 10 reps. Feels good, looks good, form's good, go up. Okay, get another set of 10. Feels good, looks good, feels good, go up. And I keep doing that until I get to a point where I know that I couldn't get more than 10 reps without form breaking or there being some real problems. And then once I do that, then I'm going to usually come back down and do a higher rep set or some type of just burnout to make sure that I left it all on the table and I didn't save anything.
Okay. Okay. I see. Most people would probably not be willing to do something as extreme as 10 sets on a given exercise. I remember I tried it back with the Charles Poliquin. I was talking like probably teenage years, but then I went on another extreme and then I did the high intensity one set all out failure with
Right.
negatives and drop sets and until you got nothing left.
I've done that too. That just,
Yeah.
one set to failure, do 4 drop sets with rest pauses, and set takes like 3 minutes, and
Yeah. So there's but hey, if you're talking about building a world class physique in the realm of natural bodybuilding, you got to
Mhm.
be on, I think you got to play with some form of extreme because the sport in itself is to an extent extreme, right? Like
Yeah,
nobody's
exactly.
just putting on slabs of muscle naturally. It's
Right.
arguably even harder naturally. I know that it's not easy putting on muscle naturally. That's all I'm going to say. It's
No,
very hard,
no,
especially as you get
it's
more
not.
advanced.
It's not. Here's my argument. People have talked about trying to mainstream the sport. It's not a mainstream sport. It's an extreme. I don't even know. I call it a sport. It's a lifestyle. To look the way we aspire to look on stage, it is not mainstream. It's you're doing something that's very extreme. And so my
Yes.
attitude is your attitude has to be extreme. So my attitude in going to the gym is I'm going to do whatever the hell. I'm going to push the limits. Well, don't you think you're overtraining? Well, I'll find out. I'm going to walk that line. I'm going to push as hard as I can and try to be right at that line as far as like what might just almost be too much. And sometimes I might step over and have to correct myself, but I'd rather do that than, leave a little bit on the table and wonder, hey, did I have more to give? Could I have been a little better? Could I have pushed a little harder? No, I'm going to know I pushed as hard as I freaking could every single day and did everything I could. And I think I think when you look at the difference between the really great naturals who have make people question whether certain natural bodybuilders are natural. They're like, oh, that person has to be using. I think a lot of it, what it has to do is their attitude and the way they train. And my attitude is I'm going to train as hard as anybody. And I've even trained with guys who I know are on gear. It was disclosed. It wasn't even a
Right.
question. We're open about it. And my goal was to outwork them. Like, I don't care if you're using something I'm not. I'm still going to outwork you. And that's the attitude you're going to have. I want to train like I'm not going to be like, well, I'm not using anything, so I can only recover from doing this much. Well, if you have that attitude, you're putting limits on yourself. And so my attitude is always no limits. Let's find out what I'm capable of. I'm going to find out. I'm going to push as hard as I freaking can, and I'm going to find out. And if I end up doing too much and comes back, well, then I'll know. But at least I tested it. And to give you an example, I mean, years and years ago when Brian Whitaker and I started training, I've done this workout a few times, but we had this idea like, let's do 10 sets of 20 on squats with 225. So we did 200 reps with 225 and my legs stayed sore for a week. And maybe that was a bit much because it's like, you couldn't even recover to get a second leg workout on that week. But here's the thing, when you put yourself through something like that, there's nothing you can't do. I like people like David Goggins, and he calls it like, his cookie jar. Every time you attain something that's really hard, you have something to pull from your cookie jar. So it's like you're building yourself up mentally as much as physically. So when you go into a daunting task, you're like, I'm not worried. I'm going to do it because I know I've already done these other things. Every time you make yourself do something really hard, you're building your mind up a little more, not just your body.
The frequency in terms of body parts Did you prefer training everything on the most part 2 times per week? Have you found better results doing that?
2 times per week, I find to be optimal. More than that gets tricky with recovery. Less than that, I consider to be inadequate. And I think there's certain smaller stuff, in my opinion, on the bigger body parts, like like legs and back. Trying to do more than twice a week it gets rough, especially if you're training with decent intensity or volume. Some of the smaller stuff, like especially if there's weak point training, like calves, I've actually trained calves up to 5 and 6 days, and I like to train them at least 3. I think it's something that you can throw in with a lot of workouts periodically. Even biceps, I think, respond to lower volume with greater frequency. I think biceps is one of those things you could do, like let's say if that's a lagging body part, you just want to bring your arms up, you could throw 5, 6 sets in up to 3 days a week, and that's going to be more beneficial than trying to hammer 10 to 12 hard sets, in a single workout where it's just too small muscle to benefit from that kind of volume. Legs are capable of way more than a lot of people think they are, so leg workouts can be, in my opinion, up to 50 sets, 60 sets, and you can get them to adapt to large amounts of volume. But trying to do more than twice a week, I think you got to be careful there. I mean, unless you're training in really low volume, because it's not so much whether or not the muscles, but some of the connective tissues and the joints may not handle that stuff as well. Now, I do think that with legs, the extraneous extra stuff, whether it's sprints, sled work, that is technically leg work, but it can almost be utilized as like recovery work, like anaerobic recovery work that will complement your strength training. You can train that pretty frequently. So, I mean, like I've gone up to doing something with my legs almost every single day, and I find it to be beneficial. My recovery is really good. Whether it's sled or sprint or any of those things, I actually would recommend that. If you look at the upper level athletes, your sprinters, your speed skaters, and things like that, they have enormous muscular legs. They are working them every single day with resistance. So the proof's in the pudding.